Hello and welcome to today's Saturday session. Today's lesson will be focused on a common exam question breakdown from topic 2 of the Leaving Cert PE specification. So the learning outcomes that will be addressed in this lesson will be learning outcome 2.1, focus on physical fitness, discussing the difference between health and performance related fitness. Learning outcome 2.2a, defining the components of health-related fitness, which are cardiorespiratory endurance, muscular endurance, strength, flexibility, and body composition. 2.3a, define the components of performance-related fitness, agility, balance, coordination, power, speed, and reaction time. 2.4, which focuses on the application of health and performance-related fitness and their components. So 2.4a, to examine the extent to which the different components of health and performance-related fitness are important in selected physical activities. To research ways in which health and performance-related fitness can be developed in a demanding practice context, and to design a combined approach to health-related fitness and performance-related fitness training. Other learning outcomes addressed in this lesson are focused on the assessment of health and performance-related fitness components. So 2.5a is to design a fitness test battery for a physical activity based on an analysis of the particular fitness demands of the activity. 2.5b, to evaluate the principles of training from a performance perspective, and 2.5c, to apply the FIT formula to each component of physical fitness. So as you can see here, every year since 2020, right up to the most recent Leaving Cert physical education examination at higher level, there have been questions on all of these topic areas and learning outcomes. So as we can see, there's at least 2 questions per year, and in 2020 there was 3 questions in the examination. So starting off is definitions of health-related fitness components. So what we're looking at is to identify a test that can measure flexibility. So the action verb for this question is to identify. So this means that we want to name and state a brief fact and provide a distinguishing fact as well. So we want to just name the test, but it's important to note that if just naming the test on its own may not get you the full mark. So we want to state a brief fact about the test and provide a fact that distinguishes it from other tests that measure other fitness related components. So as you can see here in the red, we've named the test. So we have the Backsaver sit and reach test, which measures flexibility. We're stating a brief fact about it. So it measures the distance in centimeters that a person can push a ruler along the top of a sit and reach box. And then we're distinguishing the test from other tests. So the Backsaver sit and reach test is a single leg flexibility test. So one leg is flat on the ground and the other leg has a knee bent. And that is detailed in the green writing in this question. So keeping one leg flat on the ground, the other leg bent at the knee, and that is distinguishing it from other sit and reach tests that may be bilateral or may have 2 legs involved. So the Backsaver sit and reach test is naming it, and distinguishing it from other tests is explaining that one leg is being assessed for flexibility at a time. So our next question, we're looking to describe in the action verb, and describe means to develop a detailed picture or image of. So we're trying to create as detailed a picture as we can. So this question is asking us to describe how an improvement in flexibility can contribute to improved performance in that physical activity. So for this question, I have chosen Irish dancing. So with regards to flexibility, the most relevant activities that flexibility will be relevant for are activities that involve extreme ranges of motion, such as Irish dancing and gymnastics. So in Irish dancing, improvements in hamstring, hip flexor and lower back flexibility, which are measured with the back sit and reach test, could improve technique in the high kick, which could result in improved performance and higher scoring from judges in an Irish dancing event. So again, we're addressing how it could actually improve performance right from where we get the increase in flexibility. So we get the increase in flexibility at the hamstring, hip flexor and lower back. And then that improves our technique in the high kick, which then results in improved performance from judges scoring the high kick higher. So explaining that further, so adding a bit more detail, as we were mentioning, so adding a detailed picture or image and putting that into the examiner's head. So increasing the hamstring flexibility, the hip flexor and the lower back flexibility will allow the dancer to bring their legs straight into flexion. So what that means is that they have their legs straight and they're bringing it right out in front of them as high as they can without having to lean forward or lean back, which is flexion or extension of the back. So if we're leaning forward with our back, that's flexion, and if we're leaning back, that's extension. And if we're doing a high kick in Irish dancing, if we're leaning forward or leaning back, the high kick will not appear as aesthetic to the judges and the dancer may be scored lower. So again, this will allow the dancer to achieve a straight leg high kick, maintaining an upright torso, not leaning too far forward or back, resulting in a more aesthetic high kick with improved technique, which will improve performance by allowing a higher score to be achieved. So we're bringing the examiner from the increase in flexibility that we get through flexibility training right through to the increase in performance. So we have the increase in flexibility, to how this affects how we move by allowing us to keep a more upright torso while having our legs straight as high as possible in front of us, improving technique, improving scoring, and overall improving performance. So as we can see here, the silhouette on the left is what we would be looking for the high kick. So as you can see here, the individual has their legs straight out in front of them and as high as they can get it, but they're upright in their torso. And this will receive more favourable scoring by the judges in Irish dancing, as it's a more aesthetic position, versus the image on the right. So as you can see, this person is limited in their flexibility in their hamstring, their hip flexors, and their lower back. So in order to compensate, they have to lean back in order to get their leg as high as the individual on the left. And in Irish dancing, this would not appear as aesthetic and would receive a lower score from the judges. So the next question is related to the different phases of training and their goals. So as you can see here, we have a chart where we have the strength in kg at week 1, at week 5, and week 10. So from week 1 to week 5, training resulted in an increase in strength, and from week 6 to week 10, no training resulted in a decrease in strength. So this question is focused on principles of training. So the action verbs are to identify and outline. So identify means to name and state a brief fact, and again provide a distinguishing fact, as we mentioned earlier. Outline means to present a description or a summary. So as we can see here, the principle of training displayed is reversibility, also known as detraining. So we've stated our brief fact, as you can see in purple, and then our distinguishing fact, which is distinguishing reversibility from other principles of training. So this means that the fitness component levels can decline if training stops or is significantly reduced. So in this question, we have provided both identification but also an outline. in this answer. So as you can see, we've outlined, so we've presented a description or summary of the principle of training quite well, and we've also identified it. So we've named, we've stated a brief fact, and we've provided distinguishing facts. We've done both in this question here. This next question gives us an explanation of the heptathlon event with a load of different events. And we are asked to describe fitness tests for speed and strength suitable for a heptathlete. So we're looking at all the different events here that the heptathlete has to compete in. And we have to describe, we first decide upon what are appropriate fitness tests for speed and strength suitable for a heptathlete, but we also have to describe them. And describe means to, again, create a detailed picture or image of in the examiner's mind. So, as we see here, a fitness test for speed suitable for a heptathlete is a 20-meter sprint test, as this test measures the ability to accelerate, and heptathletes are required to accelerate at the start of 100-meter sprint hurdles. So, acceleration is an important ability for a hurdler and for a heptathlete as they compete in this event. So, identifying a test that we're going to use to measure acceleration is the 20-meter sprint. So we're providing a nice detailed description of it. So again, the equipment required for this test is timing gates or a stopwatch and a measuring device such as a trund wheel. So that's all the equipment we're looking for. We're then explaining what the test involves. So quite simply, it's a maximal sprint over a distance of 20 meters. We're then describing what is actually recorded or what the variables that are measured during the test. So the time taken to complete the 20-meter sprint is recorded, whether that's achieved through timing gates or a stopwatch. And then we're very quickly discussing the reliability. So how reliable the testing is. So if we were to do the test on numerous occasions, would we get similar results given similar levels of effort? In order to ensure that we get reliability and reliable results, we want to make sure that the weather conditions and the running surface are consistent each time the test is performed. So in a country like Ireland, if we were to do a speed test on a grass pitch in January, the likelihood is that the ground would be soft and this would affect sprint times, resulting in slower times. And then if we did it in the middle of summer, likelihood is possibly that the ground would be harder and the sprint times would improve. So again, we're not actually assessing running speed. If we're doing that, we are assessing how hard the ground is. So if we were to do it on a running track, a synthetic running track, and the conditions in terms of weather were the same each day, this test would be more reliable and we'd be able to more confidently say whether speed has improved or not, rather than just a change in running surface or weather conditions. And then we're asked to describe a fitness test for strength. So same thing as before, but this time we're describing it for the health-related fitness component of strength. So fitness test for strength suitable for a heptathlete is a 1 repetition maximum bench press. And this test measures, so we're identifying and we're outlining what the test measures, the maximum force that can be produced in a horizontal pressing movement. So again, if you're sitting down at your desk there watching this video, if you push your arm straight out in front of you, that is the movement that is done during a bench press. We're measuring the max force it can produce during that. Then we're explaining why it's important for a heptathlete. So producing high force in a horizontal pressing movement. So if we push our hands straight out in front of us again, that is the movement that's required for the shot put when we're pushing the shot put away from us, and also it's the end position that we achieve when we're throwing the javelin also. So producing high levels of force in this movement is important in order to transfer to being able to push a shot put as far as possible and throw a javelin as far as possible. So we're then explaining what the test involves, what's recorded, and then reliability. same as the speed test. So the test involves bench pressing a maximal weight for 1 repetition, and then we're explaining a 1 repetition maximum testing protocol. So the tester and the athlete agree on a realistic and achievable weight to start with. So essentially that's a warm-up. You start off with a warm-up that you can do quite easily, and then the weight is increased slightly at each attempt until the athlete can no longer lift a heavier weight for 1 repetition. So that is a 1 repetition maximum. The heaviest weight lifted for 1 repetition is then recorded, and then in order to ensure results are reliable, the athlete must be allowed to fully recover between attempts and perform the exercise using the correct technique. So again, we're looking at long rest periods to allow the ATP PCR energy system to fully replenish and provide energy for maximal efforts. So our next question is, what is a fitness test battery? So this time we're looking at what is it, when is it performed, and why is it performed? So what is it? A fitness test battery is a collection of tests. So battery is just a number of tests. When is it performed? The tests are usually performed in close proximity to each other, so usually on a testing day. An example would be the NFL Combine, where they test a load of different metrics on the same day. And why is it done? It's used to determine an individual's overall fitness, focusing on fitness demands that are related to the sport. So different sports will have different testing batteries. So again, a sport such as gymnastics, which may be more focused on muscular endurance, muscular strength and flexibility, will have different testing batteries compared to a field sport or a team sport such as soccer, which may be more focused on cardiorespiratory endurance, speed and agility. The next question is asking us to identify 2 relevant performance-related fitness demands for a chosen physical activity, so an activity of our choice. And it's important to note performance-related fitness demands here. So we're not looking at health-related fitness components here. So we're not looking at body composition, strength, flexibility, cardiorespiratory endurance, or muscular endurance. We're looking at the performance-related fitness components. So we're looking at speed, balance, agility, power, reaction time, and coordination. So for this activity, just as an example, I've chosen gymnastics. So we're looking to identify, so we're looking to name, state a brief fact. So the name is in the red, state a brief fact is in purple writing, and then distinguishing fact is in green. So we've named the performance-related fitness demand, so muscular power is required for artistic gymnastics in the vault. So that's stating a brief fact. So we need power for the vault, and then to providing a distinguishing fact. So why do we need it for the vault? To produce force quickly, to jump to the vault, to try and increase air time to perform maneuvers. So we need to be able to put a lot of force into the ground very rapidly to get up to the vault, and this will give us more air time after we propel ourselves from the vault to perform maneuvers. Because if we don't give ourselves enough time to perform the maneuvers, we may be judged unfavorably by the judges and score lower in terms of performance. Balance is another performance-related fitness component required this time for the beam in gymnastics. So that's stating our brief fact. So we need balance for the beam. And distinguishing fact. So in order to maintain the center of gravity above the beam, which acts as the base of sport. So imagine you're walking on a beam and you fall to the left. Your center of gravity is over towards the left, and it's hard to maintain your balance over the base of sport, which is the beam. So you want your center of gravity to be directly over the beam, and that is why balance is required for the beam in gymnastics. So this question, we're asked to name physical fitness tests a coach could use to assess the performance-related fitness demands that we identified in question 4B. So again, we're looking at specificity, so being specific to the sport. So power, we're measuring vertical jump, so we're measuring lower body power. So we're measuring the ability to jump because we're going to be jumping up to the vault. And then for balance, we're using the standing stork test, as this will be somewhat similar to maybe some of the positions that we're going to get into on the beam when we're standing on one leg on the beam. So again, it will test our general ability to stand on one leg in the standing stork test, which will measure our general ability to balance. And as we know, that will give us an indication of whether we need to work on balance, because balance is important for the beam. So this next case study question, we're given a training program or a sample training program for a rower. So as we can see, a lot of training in there, a lot of volume, a lot of different things going on. And we are asked to use evidence from this plan and identify 3 components of physical fitness that are important in rowing. So we need to look at this plan. So again, I'll give you about 15 seconds to just look at it. And we're identifying 3 components of fitness that are important based off what we see in this plan. So based off what they're doing in their training, what do you think is important for the sport of rowing? So again, it's identifying. So we're naming, stating a brief fact, and providing a distinguishing fact. So because there's a lot of long training sessions, so we can do 3 90-minute rowing, running, cycling sessions, that's evidence of cardiorespiratory, cardiovascular training in this plan. And we're stating another brief fact as well. So it's important in rowing to provide energy from the aerobic system to the multiple races that are longer than 3 minutes in duration. So as we know, cardiorespiratory endurance is the energy to provide energy over long durations, and the aerobic system provides that energy, and generally over 3 minutes for moderate to high efforts, or from low to moderate efforts, the aerobic system is going to be the main contributor. So that's a brief fact about why cardiorespiratory endurance is important. And again, we're explaining with relevance to the plan how this is distinguished from other components of fitness. And we're identifying that we know that it's the 90-minute running, rowing, and cycling sessions that are evident in the plan that show that we're training cardiorespiratory endurance. So again, we're looking at it here again, so we can see the different sessions. And also we're looking at muscular endurance. So we're naming our component of fitness and we're stating a brief fact. It's important in rowing to provide energy to allow the muscles to repeatedly contract and produce force without fatigue. So again, we're stating a brief fact and we're explaining what muscular endurance is and why it's important for rowing. So again, rowing, elite level rowing. So in this example here, it was the O'Donovan brothers that were in the case study. And it might take them just over 6 minutes to perform a 2-kilometer rowing event. So for that 6 minutes, the muscles will have to repeatedly contract to maintain speed and produce force without getting tired and allowing the boat to slow down. And then there's this distinguishing fact. So the 3 high volume weight training sessions is evidence of muscular endurance training in this plan. So we know that when we're performing resistance training or high repetitions with lots of volume, that the focus of the training is for muscular endurance. And the last fitness component that we've identified in this training plan is flexibility. And it's important in rowing to allow rowers to have enough range of motion to allow the rower to get into good positions with excellent technique. So again, the catch position in rowing, where the rower bends their knees and hips before they push their feet into the boat to try and propel the boat backwards while pushing the oars into the water. So that position requires a lot of mobility at the hips and the lower back in order to get there without rounding your lower back. So that is what the good position is with good technique. And then the stretching session every day. So there's flexibility in there every day, and that's evidence of flexibility training in this plan. The next question is looking for us to explain. So we're looking to give a detailed count, including reasons or causes. So they're asking us to explain why the development of each component of fitness identified by you in question 13D is important in rowing. So flexibility is important in rowing to allow rowers to have enough range of motion to allow the rower to get into good positions, as we referred to previously. They must have enough range of motion at the hips, the lower back and the ankles to get into the catch position while keeping their back as flat as possible. So again, if their lower back is rounding, that could leave them susceptible to injury. Flexibility is also important for injury risk reduction in rowing, as being in a poor position with poor technique may increase risk of injury. So as we can see here, you want your lower back to be as flat as possible, as opposed to rounded when we get into this catch position. So back as straight as we can. And if we didn't have good mobility here at the ankles and here at the hips, then the lower back would have to round forward here, and that would place stress on the lower back, which could leave us susceptible to injury. So now we're explaining why the development of muscular endurance is important. So we're giving the reasons, which is answering the question and relating the question to the action verb. So muscular endurance is important in rowing to provide energy, to allow the muscles to contract repeatedly and produce force without getting tired. So as we mentioned previously, the elite level rowing races take just over 6 minutes at the Olympic level, with an acceleration phase at the start of the race, followed by a maintenance phase. So the maintenance phase is where we're really using our muscular endurance, where the muscles must contract repeatedly to keep the speed of the boat high. The core muscles must remain strong and steady throughout the race in order to keep and maintain good positions. So muscular endurance in the core will allow them to do so. And lastly, we're looking at why cardiorespiratory endurance is important in rowing, and it's to provide energy from the aerobic system for the multiple races that are longer than 3 minutes in duration. So rowers may be racing in heats, semi-finals and finals, so there's more, there could be more than one, and there often is more than one race, and they're long in duration, so they're over 6 minutes. The aerobic energy system is going to be a very large contributor to the energy demands of rowing. And that highlights the importance of cardiovascular endurance. And rowers compete in the multiple races, so it highlights the importance of cardiovascular endurance to performance over these long durations in multiple races. So our next question is to discuss whether the statement health-related fitness is the same as performance-related fitness is true. So we need to discuss the accuracy of this statement. So as we can see here, just in the first red box, we have this from the marking scheme, and the accuracy of the statement must be referred to in the answer. So that was contributing to a mark. So again, if we just went off describing and giving the definitions and explanations for health and performance-related fitness and didn't actually answer the question, we would have lost marks. So again, we need to answer the question that they're actually asking us. And again, we're discussing, we want to offer a considered balanced review that includes a range of arguments or factors, and then we want to also back up what we're saying with evidence. So firstly, we're going to address the question, answer the question we're being asked. So health-related fitness is not the same as performance-related fitness. Now, when we're offering a balanced review that includes the range of arguments, we're addressing why they might be seen as similar, but they're not the same, and including the factors that back this up. So the components of physical fitness that have a definite link with future or current health is what health-related fitness is. Health-related fitness is the fitness required to do daily, everyday tasks. So walk up the stairs, carry your shopping, and be able to participate in a range of physical activities. Performance-related fitness, on the other hand, are the fitness components required by an athlete to optimize performance, and they directly impact sports performance. So if we're looking at team sports such as soccer, you would be looking at speed as a performance-related fitness component. But again, we may be looking at strength as a health-related fitness component, important for soccer, in order to be able to tackle. Performance-related fitness is specific to the demands of a sport activity. So it's very specific. It can be very specific to the sport. So again, speed is important for soccer, for sprinting. Whereas health-related fitness is important to athletes and provides a foundation for the heart, muscles, and lungs to work together in different situations. So again, it's more general. Health-related fitness is general, but it does contribute to performance in sport also, or it can. So this is where we're offering the considered balanced review that includes the range of arguments. So we're saying that they're not the same, but health-related fitness does contribute to sport performance as well, or it can. Health-related fitness is important for everyone, no matter who you are. The components of health-related fitness are important. However, performance-related fitness may be only important for specific activities. So for example, speed and strength are important for a sprinter. However, speed is not an important priority for an elderly person, whereas as speed is a performance-related fitness component, being able to sprint really isn't a priority for an elderly person, whereas strength is important. So the strength to be able to support your own body weight if you have a trip or a fall, or the strength to be able to walk up the stairs or carry in your shopping, that is important. Whereas strength is also important in sprinting because of the high ground reaction forces, you need to be able to tolerate them. So that is given the considered balanced review, so showing why health-related fitness is important for everyone, performance-related fitness is only important for specific populations. So now we're looking at being able to give a definition. So define means to give the precise meaning of a word, phrase, or a concept. So we're looking to define the component of performance-related fitness, agility. So agility is a person's ability to change the position of their body with speed and accuracy in response to a stimulus. So if we see the two pictures below, as we can see Owen Farrell here, and he is responding to a stimulus. So that is what agility truly is. So when you have something to perceive or something to think about that you have to react to and move or change direction in response to it. So as we can see, Owen Farrell is being tackled by number 16 here, and he is pushing his foot into the ground to move himself left, and the tackler is moving to Owen Farrell's right, so he is using agility to evade his opponent. Change of direction, on the other hand, is where it is pre-planned. So again, if you have a drill where you have to run from a cone to another cone, change direction and run back, that is change of direction as opposed to agility. So there's no stimulus there. You know what's happening. Nothing is going to change in that environment. You have to run to the cone and run back. So that's change of direction. Whereas agility is a person's ability to change the position of their body, change direction effectively, with speed and accuracy responding to a stimulus. And now we're asked to outline the importance of agility to successful performance in physical activity of our choice. So I've chosen Gaelic football for this example. Again, most of the evasion sports, team sports, net, and striking sports all have a reactive element or a stimulus that we have to react to. So agility is going to be important for them. So the outline means we have to describe or summarize. So again, here we are, and we're explaining why agility is important for evading defenders in Gaelic football, because the player must change their body position with speed and accuracy in response to the defender's movements tackled. So we're using the definition and applying it to Gaelic football here. An example then of agility in practice in Gaelic football is an attacker using a sidestep, just as Owen Farrell did in the last slide, to move in a different direction in response to an opposing defender trying to tackle them. A successful sidestep will provide the attacker with space and time to perform skills which could improve performance. So we're outlining why it's important to successful performance. So if you are able to perform a successful agility maneuver, so a successful sidestep, it will give you space and the time if you get away from your defender to perform a skill, which might be a kick, pass, or a shot. And if you have more space and time, you will have more chance of being successful, which could improve performance. So we're back to giving more definitions in the next question. So define gives to give a precise meaning of a word or phrase or concept. So muscular endurance is the ability of a muscle group or group of muscles to repeat contractions against force without getting tired. And muscular strength is the amount of force muscles can exert against a resistance force. So we're looking at high levels of force for muscular strength, and we're looking at repeatability for muscular endurance. Our next question is asking us to describe the difference between training for muscular endurance and muscular strength from the perspective of intensity. So intensity for resistance training is often prescribed using percentage of 1 repetition maximum, which is a maximum amount of load that can be lifted in exercise for 1 repetition. So as we described with the bench press exercise for the heptathlete earlier. Maximum muscular strength, so the maximum amount of force we can produce, is optimally developed at a higher intensity of above 85% of 1 repetition maximum for a low number of reps, so 1 to 5 reps for 3 to 4 sets. So they're the guidelines for developing muscular strength. And for muscular endurance, in terms of intensity, we're looking at a lower intensity of lower than 70% of 1 repetition maximum for a high number of repetitions, so 12 to 15 or more. So again, we're addressing intensity there related to 1 rep max. Back to the principles of training. So we're looking to define 3 principles of training that could be used when designing training plans to enhance fitness. So we're looking at first specificity. So training should be relevant and appropriate to the sport in which the athlete is competing. So it should be specific to what you're doing. So your training needs to be specific to what you're doing. So if you are a runner and you only do strength training, your training would not be specific to running, as you would need more cardiovascular endurance for running. Second principle here is progressive overload. So by overloading their bodies a little more each time, athletes will adapt to the new demands and improve. So again, providing overload over time results in adaptation. And reversibility, as we talked about previously, means that fitness component levels can reverse if training stops or is significantly reduced. So reversibility essentially is if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So if you don't train, your fitness will reduce. Your fitness component levels will reduce. So again, that may be strength if you don't do strength training. It may be flexibility if you don't do flexibility training. It may be cardiorespiratory endurance if you don't do cardiorespiratory endurance training. So now we're asked to name another principle of training apart from that. So again, we're looking at our sport formula, our sport acronym, and we're outlining its importance in the design of effective training plans. So we're outlining means to describe or summarize. So we're looking at rest, recovery, and overtraining. So the RO part of the sport acronym. So rest days allow the body to recover and for gains to be made. That is when the adaptations take place. So a common misconception is that we get better when we train. That's not actually true. So training actually makes us a little bit worse in the short term, and then when we rest, recover, our bodies adapt, and then we come back a little bit better the next time. Overtraining occurs when an athlete's body does not have enough time through rest to adapt to the demand. So if we do too much training, we don't give it the rest time to adapt, and that results in overtraining. Rest days are required in order for the body to adapt and reach high levels of performance again on return to training. So if you do a really hard training session on a Monday, and if you do a really hard training session again on a Tuesday, the likelihood is your body is not going to be recovered in order to reach a high level of performance again. Recovery methods include stretching, so flexibility training, essentially, ice baths, massage, active recovery, so that could be a walk, could be light cycling, and compression boots. Faster recovery means returning to training faster, allowing for more training to be done. So if we train on a Monday really hard and we're training really hard again on a Wednesday, and person A recovers really well, so they get their stretching, they get their active recovery, and they really nail it, they will have a faster recovery, and they will be able to reach a higher level at their training session on the Wednesday versus the person who recovers very poorly, who doesn't do any stretching, who does not get any active recovery in, whose sleep is poor. They will not be able to reach the same level on the Wednesday. Overtraining, when we end up doing too much, may lead to fatigue, decreased performance, and or injury. So our next question is examining why any two principles of training can have, or examining the impact that two principles of training can have on the performance of an athlete. So examine means to consider an argument in a way that uncovers the assumptions and interrelationships of the issue. So we're finding out what the assumptions are and we're addressing them in the question. So progressive overload, we've chosen this time, can be applied in a training program by making it a little bit harder every time we train. It's a stress placed on the body, so it's a short-term stress that's slightly greater than what we're used to. So again, if we lift at 10 kg, maybe the next time we try and lift 11 kg. And over time, the body should adapt and improvements in performance should occur. So for example, running 100 meters in 11 seconds instead of 12 seconds. That's quite a big increase in performance there, but it could be over a long time through progressive overload that we achieve this. Progressive overload can be achieved by altering the frequency, intensity, time, and type of exercise. That's our FIT formula. The other principle of training we're looking at here is specificity. So it must be individualized, relevant, and appropriate for the individual and demands of the sport. So it should be specific to the components of fitness required for the sport that we talked about before. So a 100-meter sprinter needs speed. So their training should be focused on speed and those other components listed there. The main muscle groups required for the sport. So again, the 100-meter places significant demands on the gluteal, quadricep, hamstring, and calf muscles. Again, there's a low level of intensity placed on, say, the bicep muscles. So that training, if you're training your biceps for a 100-meter sprint all the time, it wouldn't be specific. And the intensity and the duration of the activity. So training to improve sprinting speed requires short exercise durations at very high intensities. So again, that links in with the energy system used. So if you did a lot of really long running, that would be more focused on the cardiorespiratory endurance system, and your training would not be specific. So you need to sprint at really high levels of intensity and rest for long periods so that the ATP, PCR, anaerobic lactic system is recovered and can provide energy to repeat high intensity efforts. And also, the training should be specific to the individual strengths and weaknesses. So, for example, if we use the example of Usain Bolt here, so a 100-meter sprinter may have strong maximum speed phase. So that was Usain Bolt. So whenever he used to race, he used to get up to really high speeds at about 60 to 70 meters. But his acceleration usually wasn't as good. So again, his training may have focused more on acceleration to improve his performance overall. So the next question is to name and justify the selection of 4 tests that you include in a fitness test battery for a physical activity of your choice. So the physical activity I've chosen is Gaelic football. And first test is vertical jump for power. And power is important for Gaelic football as they have to jump to compete for high balls. So we've explained the test and the justification. We've justified why we're going to do it. 20-meter sprint, so for speed, so assessment of speed is important for GA as players have to sprint and accelerate to obtain possession of the ball, often during a game. The next test is a 1-rep max bench press to assess strength. So strength is important for tackling. So again, a lot of tackles involve a horizontal pressing motion. So again, pushing your arms out in front of you. If you do that right now, that's the motion that a lot of GA players will use when they're tackling. And a 20-meter shuttle run test to assess cardiorespiratory endurance. This is important as GA players cover high distances over long game durations. So it could be 60 right up to 90 minutes at elite intercounty level with extra time periods and maybe even penalties as they've been brought in recent years. So again, a lot of this would have been done for the performance assessment as well, or maybe if you haven't done the physical activity project, if you haven't done it yet. So again, you'll be justifying why you are using particular tests for your chosen activity. So again, this could be a useful activity for you to do for your own activity, for your PAP, but also for a few other activities to practice just in preparation for examination. Our next question is to describe the FIT formula, as we alluded to earlier. So the FIT stands for frequency, intensity, time, and type. So frequency refers to how often an individual trains or exercises. So for example, frequency of training can be increased by training on more days of the week. So again, maybe we start off training cardiorespiratory endurance once, and maybe we increase it to 2 or 3 times a week. Intensity refers to the difficulty. So how hard we feel we are working or how hard we are working. So for example, in strength training, we could train at a higher percentage of our maximum, 1 repetition maximum, or if we're training cardiorespiratory endurance, we could train at 50% of our maximum heart rate starting off, and this could increase as the season goes on to train at a higher level of our maximum heart rate. Time refers to how long an exercise training session takes, so the number of sets or the reps. So again, if you have 3 sets of 10 in a gym session for 6 exercises instead of 3 sets of 8, that's going to change the time taken to complete the session. And for another session based on cardiorespiratory endurance, it might last for 30 minutes, and that time can be altered to progressively overload as appropriate. Type refers to the type of activity that is being performed. So for example, a training session could consist of cardiorespiratory endurance focused activity, such as interval training, followed by muscular strength focused activity such as resistance training. So we may include different types of training methods in our week to focus on different fitness components, but they should be specific to the goals and the demands